Morning, guys. When we feel loved, when we truly feel loved, there is nothing more powerful in this world. I felt it in my life. I am so grateful for all the love in my life. And I want you to know how powerful that love is. And I want you to know, too, that we all can show the determination, make the decision to recognize that love is a verb, as Stephen Covey has said. It's an action. And I've never had the courage to say this until now, but I want you to know, wherever you are, whatever mistakes, whatever you've been through, whatever you've gone through, you are loved. I love you. I love you because you're the same as me. We all have that one common denominator. We have a mind of our own. We have the power to control it, and we can choose love over hate. And that makes us unlimited. So I want you to remember that no matter what. Have a great day, everyone.
I remember seeing, this is way back, Oprah had Oprah.com. And I thought, how cool would it be to have your name, .com. Now, I sought this kid out. So I went to Brendan.com, and this guy, he had his resume up there. And that's all he had, was a resume. So I emailed the guy, and I'm like, hey man, I'd really love to own this website. Could I buy it from you? He goes, no, it's my name. I'm like, dang it. And he says, no, I got my mom, she's got, an email, we have an email associated with the domain.
Right.
All this stuff. I said, oh man. All right. So I set it in my calendar. Every 6 months for 6 years.
Whoa.
My calendar would go off and I'd email him again. Email him again. Email him again. Email him. It took 6 years. And on the 6th year, he said, you know what? Yeah, I'd be interested in that conversation. Sold it. So I got Brendan.com. I'm really happy about that. Really thrilled. Stupid story, but I was like, yes! Determination!
Most people don't get what they want because you don't follow through enough. You just don't follow through. It's based out of insecurity. You start and stop. You're afraid of hurting people's feelings. You're afraid of what they're gonna say about you. You're afraid they're gonna judge you. And we're afraid of having that L on our personal resume. And so we stop and try to do something else where we're seeing more immediate results. But if it's your goal, if it's your dream, you have to follow through. One of my favorite stories is with Brendan Burchard. and I went to speak at his event in Phoenix. And I knew of him, but I didn't know him at the time. It was his business partner that had me come out to his event and hired me to speak there. And that's where I met Brendan for the first time. And he asked me, hey, what are you working on? What can I help? What's next for you? And I said, well, I'm working on my book. And he said, I'd love to help. I'd love to give you some feedback on your book. Like, I am definitely down for that. Let's connect. And he asked me what my phone number was, and at the time I didn't have a phone. I didn't use a phone number. And I said, how about email? And he said, I'm not really good on email, but if that's the only way, then let's do email. So we exchanged emails, and I didn't hear from him, so I followed up and I said, hey, Brendan, thank you. Great event. Love to talk about the book like you suggested, and didn't hear back, and followed up a couple weeks later and didn't hear back, and followed up a couple weeks later, and then he said, oh man, thank you. I'm super swamped right now, but let's either come out to my place and we'll do a jam session, or I've got this event coming up, maybe you can come be there. I said, yeah, I'm down for either. Which one do you want to do? And didn't hear back, and then wrote a couple more messages and didn't hear back. And here's what's really important. In my head, every time I sent another email, I was questioning myself. I was judging myself, like, ooh, I don't want to bother him. Maybe I'm being too overwhelming. Maybe he doesn't actually want me to come out. Maybe I'm offending him. Maybe I'm not respecting him. Maybe I'm asking for too much. That's the thought in my head before every email. Where in reality, he's just a busy guy. He had a lot of stuff going on. He had a launch that was happening that I wasn't even aware of, that he was planning behind the scenes. And so he was not crazy stressed out, but he just has a lot on his plate that he's dealing with. And it's hard to tell ourselves that. It's easier to default to the insecurity of maybe you're bothering, maybe you're asking too much, maybe you're not worthy, maybe you should move on. The event that he talked about me coming to was coming up, and I still hadn't heard back whether he wanted me there or not, or and my book launch was coming up too. And I thought, I'm gonna send one more email. Just one more email, that's it. I'm gonna send one more email, and hopefully something happens. If not, then I'm done. And hopefully he doesn't think I'm a loser or whatever. And he wrote back an email and like, hey, sorry man, again, I'm not super great on email, I've just been swamped planning all these things. Come on out to the event, speak at the event too. And that was his big event that was $30,000 to $50,000 a year mastermind to be a part of, that then I spoke on stage. That then at the event, after I spoke, I met with him and Dean Graziosi backstage for an hour over lunch and planned my entire book strategy. That then led to me getting invited to go to Brendan's house a couple days later and hang with him and Dean and Tom Bilyeu and Lewis Howes and Jay Shetty and Russell Brunson and all sorts of amazing humans who built giant businesses. All of that happened because I sent that one more email. Because I followed up and I followed up and I followed up and I followed up, and it wasn't that he hated me or that he thought I sucked or that I was being overwhelming or whatever. That I kept following up. It just had the persistence. There's a lot of opportunities that are in front of you right now that just are not happening because there's not enough follow-up, there's not enough persistence. And the reasons why you're not doing it are based in reality, right? I mean, I could be overwhelming. It's possible. It's possible that he thinks that I'm overwhelming, that I'm not giving enough value, that I'm being too selfish, that I'm bothering him. I mean, it's possible, but we default to just assuming that instead of actually finding out, and we miss out on a lot of upside. And so here's what I found that really helps. 1, you schedule it in. You schedule it in every X number of weeks, right? So every 2 weeks, I would send in another email. Every 2 weeks, 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 every 2 weeks. And I never felt like doing it, because every time I saw that in my task list, I didn't want to do it. Like, let's give it another few days. Let's give it another week. I never wanted to do it. But because it was in my calendar, I did it. You will never want to do it because you're afraid, right? Underneath it is really just fear. It's insecurity. You'll never want to do it. So you schedule it in every 2 weeks or every week or every month or whatever the thing is that makes sense for the timeline that you're on. You schedule it in so that you have to do it. So when it came up, I knew I had, even though I didn't want to, even though my heart was beating, I was like, I still went off and I did it. Second thing is, lead with the intention. Before you write the email, before you make the call, before you do the follow-up, like, what's the intention? Is your intention to screw this person over? Is your intention to just suck up their time? Is your intention to negotiate a bad deal for them? Hopefully not. If you're a subscriber to this channel, hopefully it's positivity and hope and belief and mutual, benefits. And so if you lead with that intention every time, it's really unlikely that they're going to come back in a really negative way. The truth of the matter is they're probably just really busy. Maybe they're doing something insane in their life. Maybe they have a health scare. Maybe they're in the hospital. Maybe their mom's in the hospital, right? Like, you never know what's going on behind the scenes. And if you lead with intention as opposed to a copy paste email or just some kind of spam, if you lead with, I love this person, I want to do something with them, I want to help, I want to learn. Like, if that's a positive intention going in, your call, your email, your follow-up will just be a lot better. It'll be a lot better, and people will feel it. I forget who it was. I want to say it was, no, I forget who it was. I'm thinking Princess Di, but I don't think it was her. I don't forget who it was, where she would say, before I send an email, I would always smile. I would think about the person and I would smile before I wrote an email or wrote a letter, and it would always change the vibe of the letter, right? Like, if you're thinking love, kindness, smiling before you make a video, before you do a DM, before you do an email, right? Like, if you're thinking that, chances are you'll make them smile. Like, if you're smiling before you do it, you're probably going to make them smile. And so just taking that little pause to reflect on what is my intention here, instead of defaulting to insecurity and the stress on your side, default into, let's lead with positivity. Let's smile. Let's lead with love. You'd be amazed at how many great things happen. So those two things. One, you put it in your calendar until you get a response. Like, if somebody says no, okay, at least you got a response. But again, it's likely to be a loving no, because you followed up so many times and you've always led with a positive intention and love and kindness. They might just say, I'm just, you know what, I can't do this right now, or I'm not interested, or hey, sorry, I haven't gotten back to you. Let's do this, right? A lot of times it's just the timing. A lot of times your timing is way off, and it's not your timing. It just doesn't fit into their life or their world right now. But in 2 weeks it might, or in 2 months it might, or in 2 years it might. And if you're following up every 2 weeks, every 2 weeks, every 2 weeks, every 2 weeks, and you're leading with love and kindness and with a positive intent, amazing things will happen. You have a great mission inside you. You have a desire to serve and to help and to create great things for the people who you work with, right? Like, that is at the core of who you are. And that needs to be spread. And at the beginning, when people don't know who you are, it's a little harder to get attention and get on people's radar. But if you are consistently following through, even in the face of not getting any response, you just consistently, because it's on your calendar, you're consistently following through, and you're leading with the intention of love, kindness, positivity, great things will happen. I promise you, great things will happen.
Also, to make sure you're actually taking action after watching this video, I've designed a special free worksheet just for this video. The worksheet will highlight all of the lessons learned in this video, as well as pull out our 3 favorite learnings and quotes that will inspire you to actually do something. The worksheet will also give you space to write down what your key takeaways are and your specific plan of action to make sure you're getting results. If you want the worksheet designed specifically for this video, absolutely for free, there's a link in the description below. Go click on it and start building the momentum in your life and your business. I'll see you there.
Morning, guys. I want to share with you a story, a video I watched a while ago. It's from Nick Vujicic, who is a man who was born with no limbs. And he has gone through struggles, but he is now an incredible human being because he's taken that struggle and he is spreading his faith, his love to the world. And he's affected me so much, and I wanted to share with you and remind you that when we're living, laughing, and loving our way to infinite mind wealth, remember the power of love. Nick Vujicic's one speech affected this one young girl. I'll never forget. She stood up and said to him, "Thank you. No one has ever told me that they love me." And when I heard that, I thought, wow, we don't know how powerful we are, how powerful our thoughts and our words are. So someone feeling loved changed the course of their life. And that is something we can all remember. We have that power. Have a great day, everyone.
We got this company just about ready to launch, and we were looking at it and looking at this little tiny fulfillment center. We were here by then in this building. We had a basement fulfillment center. To call it a fulfillment center was very grand. There's a lot of puffery. It was 400 square feet, which is about the size of a one-car garage. And we launched this business, and we're looking at it, and we didn't know if anybody would order from us. We really didn't. And in fact, one of the software engineers looked at this little space, and he said, "I can't figure out whether this is incredibly optimistic or hopelessly pathetic." And indeed, we didn't know. We had no idea whether anybody would want to buy things in this way. The business plan called for generating sales very slowly as customers changed their attitudes. The original business plan, which I thought was very optimistic at the time, called for Amazon.com to generate $70 million in sales in the year 2001. We actually generated in excess of $3 billion in sales in the year 2001. And we knew, by the way, that we were really onto something in those first 30 days. In the first 30 days, we got orders from all 50 states and 45 different countries with not a dollar of advertising, just all word of mouth. In the first year, we didn't spend anything on advertising. All of it was word of mouth. And that really forged the company that we were going to focus on customer experience because we saw the power of word of mouth so very, very clearly in those early days. There's something great about word of mouth online, by the way, and feedback from customers, which is that email turns off the politeness gene in the human being. It's wonderful. So people actually tell you what they really think, usually in all caps. So we get lots of info and feedback from our customers, and we try to use it well.
Want to be happy? Build a life, not just a business. Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and this channel was created to help you overcome the #1 challenge that is holding you back, a lack of belief in yourself. You watch these videos because you know there's something more inside you too. You've got Michael Jordan level genius at something. So today, let's live your best belief life and get the 7 best lessons from Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, and other highly successful entrepreneurs. Enjoy. Lesson number 2, make many mistakes with Elon Musk.
It's hard to say because things have worked out pretty well in the end. So how big of a mistake could it have been, as the question is really asking. I did lots of dumb things at my first company and at PayPal, I think sometimes. Yeah, I don't know. There's so many. I'm hard pressed to say this is the biggest one.
Give us 1 or 2.
Okay.
Personal.
Okay, sure. So the biggest mistake in general that I've made, and I'm trying to correct for that, is to put too much of a weighting on somebody's talent and not enough on their personality. And I've made that mistake several times. In fact, then I would say, oh, gee, I'm not going to make that mistake again, and then I would make it again. And I think it actually matters whether somebody has a good heart. It really does. And I've made the mistake of thinking that sometimes it's just about the brain.
Lesson number 3, prepare with Warren Buffett.
I think you'll learn more about yourself if you do it that way. I bought my first stock when I was 11. I was at Rose Hill at the time, and I bought 3 shares of City Service Preferred at 38, and it went down to 27, which is something I still remember, even though I was 11 at the time. And then it went up to 40, and I sold it. I made $5 on my 3 shares after commissions, and then it went to 200 and something. So, you know, I probably remember that a little better than if I'd been doing it on paper. And I fooled around doing a lot of things between about age 11 and 19 in the stock market. I did charts, I did all kinds of technical analysis, I read every book I could get on the subject, and I didn't do that well. I didn't do terrible, but I was really just floundering around. But that meant by the age of 19, when I read Ben Graham's book, I was at the University of Nebraska in Lincoln, I went and bought this book called The Intelligent Investor, just come out, and it had an enormous impact on me. Now, if I hadn't done, in the previous 8 years, if I hadn't been all over the lot, I'm not so sure that book would have had the same impact on me. I mean, by that time, I was prepared to read Ben Graham's book, which changed my life financially in an incredible way. I mean, I wouldn't be up here today if I hadn't read that book. But yeah, part of life is getting prepared so that when something does happen that's significant, you can grasp the significance of it and know what to do with it. And I would say that first 8 years of fooling around, even though it produced nothing financially to speak of, produced a lot in terms of getting my mind prepared for when I really did read something that made sense. So I was ready to accept it. And I actually went back and went to Columbia to study under Graham, and because of reading that book, and all kinds of things flowed out of it.
Also, to make sure you're actually taking action after watching this video, I've designed a special free worksheet just for this video. The worksheet will highlight all of the lessons learned in this video, as well as pull out our 3 favorite learnings and quotes that will inspire you to actually do something. The worksheet will also give you space to write down what your key takeaways are and your specific plan of action to make sure you're getting results. If you want the worksheet designed specifically for this video, absolutely for free, there's a link in the description below. Go click on it and start building the momentum in your life and your business. I'll see you there. Lesson number 4, be graceful with Oprah Winfrey.
Dr. King said, not everybody can be famous. And I don't know if everybody today seems to want to be famous, but fame is a trip. People follow you to the bathroom, listen to you pee. It's just try to pee quietly, it doesn't matter. They come out and say, oh my God, it's you peed. Oh. That's the fame trip, so I don't know if you want that. So, Dr. King said not everybody can be famous, but everybody can be great because greatness is determined by service. Yet those of you who are history scholars may know the rest of that passage. He said, you don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and verb agree to serve. You don't have to know about Plato or Aristotle to serve. You don't have to know Einstein's theory of relativity to serve. You don't have to know the second theory of thermodynamics and physics to serve. You only need a heart full of grace and a soul generated by love.
Lesson number 5, keep the worry with Tillman Fertitta.
I know there's a paddle for everybody's ass, and I talk about it in the book, and I think that's probably, you know, what I could give everybody out there who's ever made a few dollars. You better watch for it. Even today, you know, and I came out yesterday, was number 140 on the Forbes list, 4.9 billion. I still get up every day and worry if that paddle is going to get my ass. Wow. Okay, and the day you stop worrying and you just spin freely, the paddle's going to get you, because you don't know what's going to happen. Is our government going to change to a socialist government? Is all of a sudden somebody going to come out and the millennials say we're never going to eat meat again? Right. You know, you just don't know. But we've seen some crazy things happen in our world and during my lifetime, and in your lifetime already. So remember, I mean, I'm the one who grew up and you had one telephone and in the house, and if you wanted to talk to your friends, you went to that telephone, and it was just a different world. It was just a different world.
Lesson number 6, Be relentless with Mark Cuban.
I'm relentless. I mean, I'm the guy. I mean, I remember my first company, Micro Solutions. I'd buy a bucket of ribs, and we did system integration, and I wrote software. I'd buy a bucket of ribs, and that ribs I would just eat as I would write software, and I'd be there, and all of a sudden it'd be 36 hours later, you know, or I'd lose track of days just because I just get so focused and so involved in it. That's what I do, and you know, I still, you know, I read the Hadoop manual and learned a little bit about Pig Latin, and I just want to keep up, right? And so that's probably my biggest strength.
And lesson number 7, the last one before some very special bonus clips, is find good role models with Grant Cardone.
My dad died when I was 10 years old. I had an older brother die when I was 20. By the time I was 21 years old, I was jaded and just figured, hey, life is not going to last very long. And somewhere from before my dad died to 21 years old, in between there, I thought I was going to be a businessman one day. I thought I was going to be rich and successful. And James Bond. Like, I had all these ideas. Like, when you're a kid, you have all these big, giant ideas. And then life starts, lost dad, lost brother, girlfriend, lose her. Like, I start accumulating all these losses. Start using drugs and alcohol, start using them every day, start making bad choices. 25 years old, I was broke. I was in debt, couldn't keep a relationship, had no chance of being married or having kids. It was impossible, right? It was just, none of that was even possible. So I started putting my life back together, but it's really, throughout the period from 25 to today, 35 years now, of me studying people that are successful, that has given me the discipline and the encouragement along the way with some milestones. Like 2008, when the economy collapsed, that was a huge awakening for me. Getting married, another monster awakening. Like, it gave me another reason to have a purpose. Being a good role model for my kids, not just talking the talk, but being someone my kids could look up to and say, that's what success looks like. Just having money, just having a couple $1 million, if you're not making a difference, that's one level of success. But for kids, they don't care how much money you have. My kids don't. They don't know that. Well, what does 167 million in cash look like in an account? I remember when a billionaire showed me his cash account. I was like, whoa, $400 million sitting in one account. I'm like, my God. I literally couldn't read the numbers. My kids don't even care. What my kids do care about, what changes children and what changes friends and what changes your neighbor, is what they see you doing every day. And it just so happens it takes money to do things. To fly across the world, to make new friends, to create new charities, you know, to market, to advertise, etc.
Good morning, guys. Today, Les Brown reminds us in his 10th rule, don't stop. Don't stop. Don't stop chasing your dream. And Les Brown gives us an example of a few years back, actually a long time ago, when he was trying to come up with his business, or he was starting up and trying to make it, trying to follow his dream. He was working in a building in Detroit, Michigan, and he remembers sleeping on the floor. He remembers the ridicule, the people making fun of him, with him and his partners as they tried to work on fulfilling their dream. He remembers that pain, and he reminds us to not stop. Not stop on chasing our dream. And our dream is our happiness, our deep happiness, success, fulfillment, peace. So no matter what you're going through, no matter how hard it is right now, you're going to make it. But you have to make that decision, that determination to make it. Have a great day, everyone.
pain makes us pay attention, right? Like pain makes you pay attention. I'll give an example. If you got a little cut here, you may not think anything of it. If the cut gets bigger and it starts to sting, you take it a bit more seriously. Now, if it gets infected, then you're like, okay, I need to do something about it. And often there are these signs in our life. There are always signs, signals, and reminders in our life. They are always there, but they're so quiet and we're so loud that we don't hear them. And so then those signals have to get louder and deeper and harder to finally get our attention. Because we're not present with ourselves, the only way our body and mind get us to be present is through pain. And so the only antidote is to be proactively present with ourselves, is to actually sit with our emotions, is to actually get to know ourselves intimately and personally. Because if we're always rushing around and moving around, our body and mind don't have the time to tell us what's going on. We don't listen to our mind and body because we're too busy. And so when we finally listen to our body and mind, then we get an opportunity to address what's going on. So to me, that's why pain makes us stop and realize and forces it to happen. Tragedy transforms us because it forces us to pay attention. But we can change that by proactively being present with our mind and body. And that's how we can create that urgency without the pain and without the tragedy.
Need motivation?
Watch a top 10 with Believe Nation.
Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and I make these videos because you are probably the most ambitious person in your circle, but you know you're capable of more. And you get that push by surrounding yourself with the best. So today, let's learn from one of the best, Jay Shetty, and my take on his top 10 rules to success. Enjoy. Rule number 2, never give up.
Before I ever made a video, I pitched my video series idea to 40 media companies. And I was rejected by every single one of them before an interview because I didn't have a media or journalism background or a hosting background or a communications background. And so 40 of the top media companies said no immediately. They didn't even meet me. They didn't take the time. I then chased 2 editors of huge magazines and online magazines in London. One of them I chased while he was riding his bike across London. The other I networked with at an event, and I begged them both for jobs. And I said, look, just give me a break. I just need an opportunity. And this was when I was 28 years old, 3 years ago. And they both said to me, they said, you're too old to be in media. Like, this is not going to happen. Everyone trying to break through is 21 years old. It's not going to happen. So I had literally multiple doors closed in my face before I even made a video. And I ended up...
And this is in 2013, 2014?
This is 2016.
2016?
2016. Wow. And then I ended up at a ethnic minority TV training day run by the BBC in London. And I walked into this room and there were 6 colored people in there. And I was like, oh, I'm brown, you're brown, and you're brown and black. And, you know, it was literally like, it was a room full of ethnic minorities in London. And this was run for us. And they trained us in presenting. I went there to see if I even had the skills. And then afterwards, they were just like, yeah, Jay, you're great. Like, you could do this. And I was like, great. Do you have a job for me? And they said, no, there's no jobs in media. And I was like, okay, great. So I got to a point where I'd exhausted all options apart from starting a social media page. So I launched my first video on social media on Facebook and YouTube in 2016, just 3 years ago.
And what were you doing outside of hustling in that moment?
I was doing a lot of corporate coaching.
What gave you the confidence after being rejected by 40 media companies and being told that you're good, but there's no jobs? What still gave you the confidence to keep going?
The only thing that gave me the confidence was this principle of thought by Thomas Edison, which was, when you believe you've exhausted all options, remember this, you haven't. And I was saying to myself that unless I've genuinely knocked on every single door, I can't say to anyone that I haven't had a chance. And so my confidence came from the fact that I was going to try and knock on every different door, walk down every different path, and see what was possible. And that's my biggest advice to everyone today, is that we no longer need permission from anyone to give us an opportunity to share our voice. The audience and community can decide for themselves. You've got people waiting on social media for content. The people will decide for you. And so for all of us today, we have this unique opportunity.
Rule number 3, get to know yourself.
If you've not done something for yourself every day, if you've not taken your time to invest in yourself every day, and that isn't just it's it comes so much from understanding yourself. And understanding yourself comes from the place of knowing yourself and getting to know yourself. And most of us spend so much time codependency, trying to get to know someone else and what their needs
And
are.
anticipate their needs and then shape shift so that I can be what I think you want.
Totally evolve.
My
and
20s.
Yeah, evolve and transmorph into this person that will be the best for them. But what about if you did that for yourself to start with? And so most of us don't even know what we want to eat for dinner on a given day, or like what our favorite movies are. We struggle. We sit there for like hours trying to figure out what to watch because we haven't really got to know ourselves. And so to me, getting to know yourself is very basic. After you eat a meal, ask yourself, did I enjoy that? What did I like about it? Did I feel great 24 hours after eating it? After watching a movie, what did I like about it? Why did I enjoy it? Those basic questions will give you a much deeper understanding of yourself.
Rule number 4, love and be loved.
The challenge is that we think things come with emotions.
Feelings.
We think things come with feelings and emotions. And guess what? They don't. So if you chase money...
Well, they might for a moment, right? Or they won't?
I don't think they even do.
It's a false sense
It's
of
such
feeling.
a false sense of feeling. I don't, maybe for a moment, but it's so short-lived that it's not even worth counting almost. So it's like when you think that I'm chasing money, guess what? You will get money.
Yep.
And that's great. Money is really important. And money is a really important resource. But guess what? Money's not now gonna fill that gap, that void, that feeling, that emotion that you're missing in your life.
What are
And
most
so
people missing?
we're missing a deep sense of love. I think the biggest need in the world, as we've heard many times before from all the ancient texts, they summarize it like this: to love and be loved. Like that is the need of humanity, to love and be loved. And when we don't experience that, we then start looking for status. We then start looking for money. Then we then start looking for recognition.
To help us give the feeling of false sense of love.
Correct. And the challenge is because most of us didn't experience that from our parents, and this is the key thing, what we crave in life is what we did or didn't get from our parents. What our parents did give us is what we continue to crave, or what they didn't give us is what we continue to crave. So you'll find that most people's love languages that they chase are things that their parents didn't give them. So if their parents didn't give them time, they now crave everyone's time. If their parents didn't give them gifts, they crave gifts. If their parents didn't give them acts of service, they're craving those acts of service. So it's because of our childhood. And if we don't learn to process all of that experience, which most people never get the time to do, and I empathize with that because I've had to go through that. I've seen me repeating my parents' patterns.
What was the thing you were craving?
So I would crave, a big thing for me was I would crave surprises and gifts because
That's your thing.
Yeah, that's my thing.
Still is your thing.
It's still my thing.
Yeah.
And I
Did your parents not do that for you?
No, they did. My mom did a lot of it.
That's why you still crave it.
Correct. So my mom would always, every year on my birthday, she'd always surprise me with the one thing I wanted. And I wasn't spoiled growing up. I didn't have a lot growing up, but she would get that one thing, whether it was like a Power Rangers toy or whether it was whatever it was, you know, something, you
Video
know.
game or
Yeah,
something.
things you want as a kid, right? And she would always surprise me with that. And that became so deep rooted. Now I'll give you an example. When I then married my wife, you just expect people to know that.
That they're gonna do the same thing.
Totally. And so
She
now
didn't do that.
No, because I'm expecting my wife to be like my mom in the sense of I expect her to surprise or show me love in the same way. And she doesn't know that. She's not a mind reader. I can't expect her to know that. So it took communication. It took time for me to explain that.
Also, to make sure you're actually taking action after watching this video, I've designed a special free worksheet just for this video. The worksheet will highlight all of the lessons learned in this video, as well as pull out our 3 favorite learnings and quotes that will inspire you to actually do something. The worksheet will also give you space to write down what your key takeaways are and your specific plan of action to make sure you're getting results. If you want the worksheet designed specifically for this video, absolutely for free, there's a link in the description below. Go click on it and start building the momentum in your life and your business. I'll see you there. Rule number 5, have the right intentions.
Spirituality in business is an interesting concept because a lot of people today see it as an oxymoron or mutually exclusive. And the truth is that spirituality is so powerful that it actually spreads across everything. And I know all of you understand that, but it's like, if spirituality is what we all say it is, then it has the purity and the power to spread across anything. And again, going back to our previous theme, the key element is this for service of humanity for others, or is this in the service of myself? Now, that's a fine line.
Yeah.
And I've been on the wrong side of that line plenty of times. So there's plenty of times when I assess options and opportunities in front of me, and I realize I'm only taking that option because there's ego involved. I'm only taking that option because there's an opportunity, or there's a big payout, or there's a nice dollar sign next to it. And I'm only doing it for that. And I've said yes to stuff like that plenty of times to know that I'm not perfect. But the awareness is what I would encourage people to do, is having the ability to be like, here are the 3-4 options in my life right now. Let me write a word above them, which is the intention of why I'm choosing that. And if the word isn't love or service, it's not going to feel good after I finish it. And so that's what I would encourage people to do as a reflection without needing anyone in their life or anyone around them.
Rule number 6, don't judge the moment.
And I said to her, and this is a monk statement that we used to repeat, I said to her, I'm just not going to judge the moment. Don't judge the moment, because what we do is we try to label moments as good or bad. And when you label a moment as bad, it now does not have the opportunity to become good. I'll give an example. If I go, I don't like this book's bad, right? And I love this book. But if I say that, guess what? I will never pick it up and recognize the value that's inside of it, because you've labeled it. And we label stuff, like we label, oh, that restaurant's bad. But when you label a moment,
person's bad,
that person's bad. Now you can't learn from that person. Oh, a great one. That's a really good one. As soon as you start labeling people or anything as good or bad, you limit it. You stop it from being something else. And here's the truth. Every moment can evolve into being anything if you give it the opportunity to.
Right.
But as soon as you say it's got no value anymore, you lose it. And so for me, I had to say to myself, don't judge the moment. And I'd keep repeating that to myself.
Don't judge where you're at.
Don't judge
what's happening.
Yeah, don't judge it as negative. Don't just start saying it's negative. Because guess what? We've all been in positions where a gift turned into a curse and a curse turned into a gift.
That's true.
Right? We've also
where our
been
dreams
in the
came true and it ended up not being what we wanted.
Exactly.
And it fell apart and it led us into our dreams.
Totally. Why is it that so many people that win the lottery go broke?
Yeah.
Gifts can turn into curses too.
True.
But because we label them as the best moment in our life or the worst moment in our life. Whereas when you approach things to neutrality and just what you have on the table, you can be like, okay, what am I going to do next?
Rule number 7, seek and find mentors.
I had the fortune of interviewing Walter Isaacson. He's famously known to write the biographies of the biggest icons of all time. So he wrote the official biography of Leonardo da Vinci, Einstein, Steve Jobs. Like, you know, just it's insane. And he worked at CNN and Time before that. And he wrote a new book about a lady named Jennifer Doudna, who is the founder of gene editing. Now, she's a female scientist who was told by her school teachers that women don't become scientists, right? Like women can't be scientists. She just won the Nobel Prize for her discovery. So amazing. And he just wrote a book about her life. It's called Codebreaker. The reason why I'm sharing all of that is that some girl's gonna pick up that book, or guy, both, or anyone, or they are gonna pick up that book, and they are gonna find their role model in that book. We may not have a monk on speed dial, we may not have met a monk when we were 18, but you're going to find when you start searching and looking, and when you find that, you're gonna read it, you're gonna internalize it, and it's gonna change how you think. And I just feel that encouraging people to find coaches, guides, and mentors is the best thing I can do, because there's no one we admire that doesn't have that. Whether they're an athlete, whether they're a singer, whether they're a musician, whether they're a videographer or editor, everyone's had mentors, guides, and coaches, but it's become so far removed from our lives today that everyone thinks they have to figure it out for themselves. And that's where the mess is created from. It sounds like an obvious point, but it's almost like we obviously haven't pushed it enough.
Right.
Because as a man, to take another person as your mentor also requires you to have humility. You've got to forgive yourself. You got to be compassionate to yourself. So the simple act of taking on a mentor actually does more for your masculinity than anything else.
Rule number 8, allow yourself to explore.
Half the reason why we don't get started is we, put this big plan or big next step ahead of like, okay, now I have to, yeah, like you said, like go and build this new cafe and we're going to have 12 on every street corner in New York City and it's going to be the next big thing. And, you know, who can live up to that? And I think the same was for me. I wasn't judging myself for trying out 2 lives. I wasn't judging myself for my mistakes. And maybe I did judge myself at that time, but I've learned now to just release myself of that judgment and allow myself to experience and explore without putting that in. Even in this time that we're in right now, like I think I'm, you know, encouraging people to just explore and experiment in this time rather than judge yourself or feel guilty, because guess what? None of us planned for this. No one knew it was happening. And that's kind of life in general, but we're all feeling it at the same time right now. And so you can't expect yourself to have a plan, but you can allow yourself to explore, experience, and experiment. And that's actually what's going to help you find the plan or what you want to focus on, rather than forcing yourself to feel you need to focus right now.
Rule number 9, accept you have a choice.
How much of a positive environment supports us in our growth or holds us back? There are some people who have the perfect family situation, resources, beautiful backyards and nature, who are lazy. And there are others who have, you know, divorced parents, abusive friends, an environment of a desert, and they figure out a way to thrive.
Totally.
How much importance does our environment play in our overall success?
If you look at the examples that you just shared and you really analyze life, you'd see very little, because you see people craft their own life. So a good example for me is that when I came back from living in the ashram, and there were other people who may have been monks who'd also left the path, and I came back to a not financially successful or supportive family. So my family doesn't have abundant wealth and couldn't necessarily have taken care of me or paid for me forever. Mm-hmm. And I had to figure out my own life. And that to me was a great sense of impetus and incentive to go and figure it out and learn new skills and network and meet people. And I saw other friends whose parents had like a property portfolio with like 10 properties ready to hand them over. They had a BMW the second that they came out, whatever, you know, from their own life. Yep. Or I even have friends that had all of that and didn't become monks and didn't even find careers. So I've also got friends that I went to school with that today don't even have careers, even though their parents were really well established. Right. Which has, all of these examples have continued me to believe that we truly have influence in our, more than our environment. Our environment affects us for sure. It plants seeds and weeds into our life, but there is still a choice. And I think even if you feel there isn't a choice, simply by accepting that there is, it means you have a chance to get out of there. And I think that's what...
Because if you don't accept that there is, then you're just going to stay stuck.
Correct. Like there've been so many times in my life, and there's a beautiful quote from Edison. I don't think I said this last time, but if I did, it's worth repeating. He said that when you believe you've exhausted all options, remember this, you haven't. Mm. And the reason why I love that is your mind continuously feels stuck when it's tried the obvious. And that's why a lot of creativity and focus studies say that the first 10 ideas that come to your mind are never the most interesting. It's when you get into the 11th idea that you start breaking the pattern. Mm. And so if someone asks you, oh, what's your best business idea? Your first 10 ideas are probably not that innovative. And so the mind constantly gets stuck on that train. And you've got to keep reminding yourself that there is another door. There could be another pathway. I was thinking about a piece of advice that, so one of my closest spiritual mentors, who was in London, I knew him since I was probably like 12 and properly went since I was 18. He passed away this year from stage 4 brain cancer. Mm-hmm. And he'd had brain cancer for about, I think like 4 years now. And so I hadn't really had a real interaction with him for the past few years, because every time I saw him, he wasn't fully functioning in his short-term memory. His long-term memory was there, but his short-term memory wasn't. And I remember speaking to him probably about 7-8 years ago and asking him the question. I said to him, you know, I've got so many ideas. There's so many things I could do. Where do I start? And he said this beautiful thing to me. He said, you know what? Your role should be to open up every door possible. And he said, let the world close the doors you're not meant to walk through and walk through the ones that remain open. Ooh. And what I realized is most of us are just not opening up enough doors because we think we only have the option of 2 doors. We look at life as binary. 0 and 1, 0 and 1, right? It's just
This or
A or
that,
B,
yeah.
this or that. And I mean, I think you'd say this too about you and every guest you ever had on. I don't think life is ever this or that. It's like this, that, and maybe that, and that. And there's always a gap.
And rule number 10, the last one before some very special bonus clips, is forgive yourself.
You've been able to separate how a video does or performs
from
your own self-worth.
Oh, for sure,
And
yeah.
I think that is really kind of the key and the question for when that TikTok or that Instagram video turns off, they're left with themselves.
Yeah.
And you know, one of the things you teach is being with yourself. But if they don't know how to be with themselves, so I guess this is an opportunity. I'm asking you to to talk to them if someone's listening right now who is struggling with that, because I have struggled with it, especially from a service perspective. Like, I'm here to be of service. Why am I making this about? Why do I care? Why should I care? I don't care. Do I care? I do care. Shit, I care too much. No, I didn't get, you know, and it's like, should I post that? No, but this is my platform. I want to post whatever I want. I want to post a picture of the sunset, but no one's going to like the picture of the sunset, Justin. So post something. I've had these conversations with myself, and the fact that I'm having them drive me crazy. And you just strike me as somebody who doesn't have them as much.
The philosophical answer and the more spiritual answer is I'm flawed. I do seek validation in what people think of me. I do get upset if someone doesn't like my videos and like someone else's. And I forgive myself, I'm compassionate, and I start over again. Like, that's just the real answer. Like, that's just the truth.
I love that.
I mess up, I fall down. I get that I do get worried about, oh, well, will I be relevant next year? Oh, I do get worried about, like, oh, will people care about me? I do get worried about, like, have I said anything good on this podcast right now? Like, is there anything that I've said that is actually even worth this podcast? I do think about that, like, every time. I think about that every time I record a solo episode of my podcast. And I think about it all the time, but what do? I allow myself to feel that. I allow myself to experience it. I forgive myself for judging myself, and then I start again. And I start every day as if it was new. And my wife and I have this amazing ability, we both have it, is that we can go to sleep, forget the night before, and start again. And I think my memory literally does that. I erase all of my failures and mistakes from the day before and just start afresh every day, because it's the only way I know to allow myself to have another go at it. Just the idea of allowing yourself to have some compassion for yourself. And I think everyone who's sitting out there who's judging themselves, accept that you judge yourself, be compassionate, but then seek to redirect that energy. Whatever table you're at, and whoever's at that table is what you judge yourself by.